Welcome in everyone and welcome to the Cup of Tea channel. So this video is going to be going over the livestream developer update recap. We have the notes right here which we'll be delving into in this video. So the developers over at Diablo 4 had quite a lot to discuss over the livestream, which lasted about 2 hours long in terms of what's to come in season 2, the season of blood. This will be out on October 17th, as well as we will have a campfire chat which will be out on October 10th as well. So we'll be definitely doing a video covering that. So with the notes right here, we'll be going over the quality of life changes Blizzard plan to implement for season 2. This is a lot of changes for the itemization, dungeons, events, experience, as well as changes to towns to make it all the more better experience for the player base, as well as focusing on improvements for that mid to late game as well. In terms of the Vampiric Powers and going over that, I'm going to do a separate video for that one because that is a whole bunch of information in itself and there's quite a lot to cover in this video. So without further ado, let's get right in. So the Diablo team mentioned even before the livestream developer update that they are bringing in 5 new endgame bosses. This is going to give us the opportunity to farm uniques as well as the chance to potentially get uber uniques as well. These will be accessible in the mid to late game, so when you unlock world tier 3 and tier 4 by doing your capstone dungeons, and I'll explain in a later video in how to encounter these bosses once you've unlocked those worlds. The Diablo team has said the reward pools for these endgame bosses have been significantly improved. Each boss drops specific uniques exclusive to each individual boss fight. The Duriel boss fight, which is accessible in World Tier 4, has significantly increased chance to drop an uber unique in itself. Additionally, each individual boss does have a drop chance for some cosmetic items as well, making the access for specific cosmetics in game more targeted. Now moving over to our end game activities, so starting off with the Legion events, so rather than every 30 minutes, it is now been reduced by 5 minutes, so every 25 minutes you'll be able to access a Legion event, and as well you will be given a 10-minute warning instead of a 5-minute warning before it starts, so you don't have to frantically try and get to the destination before the event even starts. And then they've also fixed an issue with the minimap UI as well with the pin. War bosses have also received a change as well in terms of frequent spawn rate, so now rather than every 6 hours it is going to be reduced down to 3 hours 30 minutes, and rather than being warned 30 minutes prior, it's going to give you 60-minute warning, so you have time to plan in between if you're planning to run dungeons or any other events in between. And then additionally, if you are in a dungeon, you don't even see the map, it will ping a little message 15 minutes before the event actually starts, so you have time to complete the dungeon and get yourself over to the world boss. They've also made some increases to your experience gained as well as gold earned through your Helltide chests, cashing in your grim favors, as well as completing your individual whispers. Speaking of Helltide chests, they've also made some improvements on the map itself, so rather than it being a chest icon, it will actually specifically say what it is on the map as well. So if you're looking for the glove one, it will pop up right there, easy to find. The Tree of Whisper caches have also received some improvements as well, such as the Nightmare Sigil keys. It will actually be a 5-level difference in terms of the highest dungeon you've completed, rather than you doing your, like, for example, 50 average and then you randomly receive like a level 23 one. It's now going to be more suited to that sort of range level that you are pushing through. As well, the Whisper caches will also adhere to the item slot of the cache. So for example, if you select a weapons cache, you're not going to receive boots or rings and that, so that is definitely a better improvement and makes a lot more sense. So now we move on to the player experience and monster leveling section of the notes. This is going to be a massive change in terms of players experience through leveling and speed and proficiency. So much so Blizzard have given almost a 40% increase. They did say 41% during the live stream, but the experience you gain from killing monsters at level 50 plus have been significantly increased and rises steadily as you level. This has been observed by the development team as well as other players giving feedback. The first levels 1 to 50, that is where your main player base is going to be, and then that 50 to 70 progression, you do see a player base drop off during season 1. And then that 70 to 100, that's where a lot of players did drop off, which is going to be your main end game kind of section. And with Blizzard trying to introduce more and more content later on through the game and the expansions, they want to be getting players to that section quite efficiently. So with these changes, this is going to be much more positive for the game itself. To make the game feel less of a grind fest in terms of monster slaying, they have also made additional changes in terms of monster power levels. So when you achieve bits of gear in that, you're going to feel that power spike. It's not a matter of you hit a level, the monsters get stronger alongside you, so you don't really feel that increase in terms of the legendaries you have equipped. So what they decided to do was to prevent monsters from being less powerful as the character level increases by making monsters on worlds tier 3 and 4 match the current player level at a minimum after levels 55 and 75 respectively. This increases your power spike levels, so you're going to be clearing mobs much more efficiently, making the whole leveling experience and power spikes a lot more enjoyable. They've also made some improvements to the consumables such as the incense, so now when you die you do not lose that buff, it will permanently stick on just like your elixirs. As well, they've increased the experience bonuses for your elixirs and seasonal blessings by making them multiplicative in the world tier bonuses. We're now moving on to the Nightmare Dungeon section. So I was not expecting this many changes for improvements to the dungeons, but every single one I do welcome on board. So starting off first, they have expedited the demon slaying process, as Nightmare Sigils now teleport you directly into the Nightmare Dungeons, meaning we no longer have to go through the tedious process of being spawned outside the dungeon door, having to click on and go through a secondary loading screen. They've also made a slight change in terms of rewarding you with a Nightmare Sigil. If the dungeon had a boss at the end, it would drop one. If you did one which was like a mob clearance or an objective, it wouldn't. They've changed it so at the end of the dungeon, regardless boss or not, you will get a Nightmare Sigil. They have also said that they're going to be removing some objectives from the dungeons as well, where it's just going to be required for you to defeat the boss to complete that Nightmare Dungeon. They've also made some changes and improvements to the Nightmare Dungeon affixes as well, starting off with backstabbers. So close monsters attack from behind cause you to become vulnerable instead, rather than being a base percentile damage, which could potentially one-shot you depending on the level. So hardcore players are definitely going to enjoy this change. And then we move on to the monster critical resist. So monster attacks reduce the damage from critical strikes by 3 seconds instead by a certain percentage of X and Y. They've made 2 changes to the Death Pulse affix, so monsters that have an explosion effect on them will not have this affix, meaning it will not stack on top of each other. And they've also prevented Death Pulses from spawning repeatedly on top of themselves. For example, the Spiderlings, where you killed them and they would spawn multiple Death Pulse, potentially one-shotting you. That will no longer be the case. And this change right here, I was very happy to see. Which is your least favorite affix and why is it Lightning Storm? So they have now changed it, with being shocked while in the protection dome grants a 35% movement speed bonus increase for 5 seconds, so you're not going to be losing any progress from stopping and starting. Additionally, it will only start when the player is in combat, so if you were to die in the dungeon and start from the entrance, you will no longer have to try and work around this mechanic to get back to where you were. And then additionally, it only starts if the protection dome caster has a direct path for that targeted player. We now move on to our final affix change, where they have changed the drifting shade from being 5 seconds down to 3 seconds, preventing players from having to waste time trying to dodge and dive during the dungeon to avoid getting hit by this. And additionally, the respawn time has been increased by 2 seconds, so it's not going to be frequently happening as often. They've also changed the way they have designed their maps for the dungeons, so they have massively reduced backtracking by placing all dungeon objectives on critical paths of the dungeon, making them much harder to miss and taking a wrong turn, as well as redesigning many dungeon layouts. They've also added end caps to the dungeons, so the dungeon layout doesn't feel too linear. And also another change in terms of dungeon layout, they have now made traps in those dungeons more readable by visual effects, and additionally reducing their crowd control. And finally, for the Nightmare Dungeons, the Paragon Glyph experience has been increased also. They've also made events within these dungeons a lot more worthwhile by increasing the mob density, so you're going to get a lot more experience from it, but it's also a lot more fun being able to show off your flashy moves. But additionally, the much more better improvement here, NPCs are no longer going to be one shot. I have so many times just given up on an objective knowing that they will die in one shot. At least this will actually give us an opportunity to get the best rewards from completing these objectives. We're now moving on to our item adjustments. So this is one of the main points they were going to be bringing across for season 2, and they have significantly freed up the inventory space by making gems a crafting material. This material will then be taken over to your jeweler, where you will actually craft the gems right there. This is going to free up a lot more space in your inventory and bank stash. Some good news for those hardcore players as well. So they have now prevented it from players dying due to a DC. With the scroll of escape now, it will activate if you're in combat and you disconnect. It will take you to a safe location, so when you log back in, you should still have your character. Now this next one they 100% had to address, and I'm so glad they've actually come up with a solution for this. Enchanting. Have you ever got yourself a legendary item with some decent rolls on it and you're going to use it for your build, but there's that one stat you just need to help with it? You roll, you roll, you roll. It's 50 mil. Didn't really like that. So Blizzard have made the change where you're going to be paying a little bit more than what you used to at the start, but that gold ramp up is going to be substantially a lot less, meaning you're more likely to get that stat that you want for that item. They've also reduced overburdening of inventories and frequent trips you'll need to take into town due to your inventory being full. The way they've done this is world tier 3, any normal, magic and non-sacred items will be dropped as crafting materials instead. And additionally, for world tier 4, any normal, magical or non-ancestral rare items will be dropped as crafting resources. And because these items are being automatically converted into crafting materials, you cannot sell them on into your vendors to get your gold. So what Blizzard have done to compensate for this, Worlds tier 3 and 4, they've increased the gold drop rate. And moving on to item power now, so defeating higher level monsters in Worlds tiers 3 and 4 drop sacred and ancestral items of greater item level power potential. This also applies to your Nightmare Dungeons, so the higher level the monster, the higher item power those items will drop. Normal Whisper caches rewards now provide a plus 10 item power, the upgraded caches now provide a plus 20, and additionally the Helltide cache stashes rewards now provide rewards of 20 plus item power value. We now move on to the miscellaneous improvements, first of all focusing around the renowned leveling. So reduce the time spent having to regain the renown on each season. All earned renowned rewards persist between seasons and characters. This does not include experience or gold. So earned skill points, potion capacity, max O-balls and paragon points earned from the renowned will persist between each character. Renown experience and gold must be earned for each of those characters. For example, character 1 earns renown tier 2 in a region, and that gives them the 1 skill point and 1 potion capacity. They create a second character and they earn the renowned in tier 1 in a different region, and they gain that 1 skill point. When they make that third character, this character will automatically receive both these renown rewards from characters 1 and 2, so they gain the 2 skill points and the 1 potion capacity available. The Diablo team has said this also applies to hardcore characters. If the renown rewards were earned on a hardcore character in the Season of Malignant, those earned rewards persist to a new hardcore character in the Season of Blood, regardless whether your previous hardcore character had died. For hardcore characters, the Altars of Lilith and map discovery progress still carries over with the hardcore realm. However, this third point here kind of conflicts with the first statement, because they say here, similar to the Season of Malignant, Altars of Lilith and map discovery progress for hardcore characters that have both died before the Season of Malignant will not persist for the Season of Blood. So maybe we'll have a bit more clearance on the campfire chat on the 10th of October, who knows? Now going on to some small quality of life changes once again. So coveted items can now be marked as favorite and cannot be sold or salvaged, so you do not accidentally salvage or get rid of an item that you actually need for your build. And they've added 2 additional character slots, and they've eased the ability for players that haven't completed the campaign to access that seasonal content by adding the option to skip that campaign as long as your character has completed the prologue. And finally, for those minion and companion builds, they have now prevented it from where they're going to be attacking the invulnerable enemies. They will only attack enemies that will be receiving damage, so you are getting the most out of your damage for those pet builds. And now moving on to some mount improvements. So improve the horse riding experience by improving the overall responsiveness of the mounts. They are less likely to get stuck on barriers or slow down unexpectedly. They reduce the time it takes to travel across Sanctuary by increasing the spur duration, and as you saw with that little demo video, you can now break through barricades. The base speed has been increased by 15%. This does not affect your top speed. However, they've removed the need for players to place the cursor on the edge of the windows to get that max speed. It will now just have a general speed which has been improved relative to the cursor placement, and improved mount combat and mount versatility by reducing its cooldowns by 50%, manual dismount with a reduction of 10 to 5 seconds, forced dismount damage cooldown has been reduced from 10 to 4 seconds, and the delay between the mount combat skill becoming available after mounting, example the Barbarian's Bounding Slam, has been reduced from 10 seconds down to 3 seconds. And now for some town adjustments. So additional stashes have been added to the capital cities near important vendors, so you're not having to travel all the way to the tavern to transfer your legendaries, aspects, gems and such, and they've reduced the need to travel to capital cities by adding stashes to the smaller towns with waypoints, reduced the need to travel to capital cities by adding an occultist to the Tree of Whispers waypoint itself, and reduced the need for additional walking by the Purveyors of Curiosities. They have set up shop a lot closer to the waypoints in several cities, as seen with the map location here. And for when you start the season and skip the campaign, you'll be given a lot more waypoints to access from compared to season 1. So they've added 2 waypoints in each region now. And note that for players that skip to choose the campaign and haven't unlocked the 10 waypoints on any character, they will not automatically be available. And here we are at the final part of the notes for the live developer stream update, the UI and UX. So they improved the item sorting and overall organization by adding stash search tabs and stash filter functionality, something that the players have been asking for quite a time now. So I'm very glad this has finally been implemented. They've also added a streamer functionality by adding a streamer mode to the game now. So for myself, I do stream over on Twitch, and if you do want to catch me, you can find me over at twitch.tv/cuppa_t, where we'll be streaming the season 2 on October 17th. I'll also put a link in the description, so be sure to click that. But moving on, we then go on to the improved organization by displaying item affix tooltips to be more intuitive and in a consistent order, as well as improving the organization by grouping the extracted aspects with the same legendary powers together when sorting through your stash and inventory, so finding the same one would be so much easier to navigate through. And then improve the navigation functionality by adding the ability to auto run now. When moving in a direction, the player will continuously move in that direction face where the cursor is placed until another movement is activated or a skill is initiated. Improve navigation with your minimap by adjusting the zoom level. Added the option by hiding all combat text, i.e. vulnerable damage, dodge, and fortified, so your screen is not as cluttered. Improved the unique item visibility. Improved access to the screen reader option by enabling it by default, and improved the cursor, contrast colors, and options for versatility and customization. And they wrap things up with this post saying this is only a top list level of improvements included with the Season of Blood. To take a more in-depth look, watch the recap for the developer livestream update now. I will drop a link of the video in this video here in the description, so be sure to check that out if you want to watch the full 2 hours. But additionally, they did go over the battle pass. What I'll quickly say is they've made some improvements in terms of the Umbral Ash. When you complete the battle pass section by section, you had to go back and click every redeemed rewards in that. It will do that automatically for you now. And additionally, they are going to be changing or making the Umbral Ashes a lot more earlier accessible, so then you're able to upgrade those seasonal bonuses such as the experience gained a lot more sooner, so you'll be able to get those levels and bonuses a lot sooner as well. And I almost forgot to mention that Diablo 4 is actually going to be available on Steam as well, so if Battle.net is not the client you want to be using for it, you can use Steam as an alternative. So yay, but not yay because you have to rebuy it. Sorry. But that's everything I wanted to discuss in this video right here. In terms of the actual vampiric powers and the mechanics behind it, I'll be covering that in a separate video, so be sure to subscribe to the channel so you know when that is posted. But additionally, I put a lot of work behind this video here in terms of getting the content, the footage and everything, and editing it all together. I do this all by myself. I do it in between my workouts as well as streaming, as well as doing other uploads and edits as well, so it's a lot. So just a simple like to the video and a comment as well, it really helps the algorithm, right? But I just want to say thank you very much for tuning on in, and I hope you found this video super useful in terms of information. But until then, I'll see you in the next video, goblins. Take care.